You've enjoyed the informative podcast Stuff You Should Know with Josh and Chuck. Then came the more conventional Stuff You Should Throw that covered topics like frisbees, parties, and punches. Then you checked out Stuff You Should Grow that enlightened us all about things like carrots, pumpkins, and cannabis. You also listened to Stuff You Should Blow with an in-depth discussion on bubblegum, whistles, and Charlie Sheen. All of these followed by other hit podcasts, including but not limited to Stuff You Should Hoe, Stuff You Should Stow, and Stuff You Should Overflow. And now comes a brand new podcast you're sure to enjoy, Stuff You Should Sew, where we go so in depth with needlepoint it'll leave you in stitches. Let's take a sneak peek at an episode right now.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our episode on Snags in Your Cardigan. And I just said cardigan, so it's time for listener mail. But unfortunately, the mail couldn't get here because we recorded in Atlanta, and we just had a 0.3% chance of snow 15 days ago, so the entire city has been shut down ever since. But don't worry, because next week we have a very special episode for you with a very special guest, musician and filmmaker Rob Zombie. That's right, he'll be live in studio with us.
Live, yeah, wow!
And discussing his 5 favorite things to sew.
5, yeah, wow!
Those 5 things include leather, jean jacket patches, eyelids, lips, and doilies. Until next time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another mini episode of the Above Average Joe Show. And today's guest with us is Amor Owens. Amor, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. Good to be here.
Awesome. And Amor, you are an actress, and you've actually been working in the business for a while in like several different capacities, though.
Yes.
What different jobs have you had over the last whatever years you've been doing this? I don't even know how long it's been.
I started doing work in the industry since 2010. I started off freelancing as a costume designer for White Stone Motion Pictures. They're based out of Beaufort, Georgia. For several years, I helped them with art department. I helped them with production. I was a line producer and unit production manager for a handful of their independent shorts. I helped cast some of these projects, and then I also freelance with other production companies since 2010. But I would say for acting, I started seriously working when I signed with J Purpose Talent Agency in 2013. I've been working in front of the camera ever since then.
Oh, wow. So that's been over 5 years then.
Yeah, for sure. It's been wonderful. I've had so much fun.
And the latest acting gig that you've had, which is the one that I want to focus on mostly today, was on a film that just recently came out that is called Little. And we're not going to spoil the movie for people because it has just recently come out from the time that we are recording this. But for the information that we have in the trailer, to give everybody an idea, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, what happens is there's a full-grown woman who's a business lady. She's very successful. She has her own app-making company. And one day she wakes up and she is little. She's, I believe, 9 years old, if I remember correctly. Might be 10. But she is the younger version of herself from when she was back in middle school. And how she has to deal with that over, was it like a couple days, I believe? A couple days' time?
Right.
Try and figure out how to run her company as a child and and not let anybody know that she's a child. And
so you want to hear some highlights of my work on set without spoiling it, right?
Yes, as much as you can without giving anything away. I know that when I went to go see it, because I got to see a pre-screening of it a few weeks ago, that I saw you in a scene with a really nice car. I'm not a car person, So, but there was a really nice car out there that she was getting into,
Yes.
and it's one of those that's got really great pickup. It'll skid when you start the accelerator and all that other stuff.
Right.
And you popped up on screen, and I forgot that you were even in the movie. I remember seeing you posting, "Hey, I got a job with Jay Purvis at some movie," and I had totally forgot it was that one. All of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, it's Amor."
That's so cool you recognize me. I'd like to talk about that scene. In fact, I was actually in two different scenes. One was with Regina Hall, and as the big girl, and also a second scene, the valet scene opposite Martin. She's so funny and so wonderful to work with. The funny thing that happened the day we were filming that was my friend and I, Cecilia Specht, who was also playing with me as a condo resident. She and I were able to improv that scene after they had taken several shots.
Nice.
It was so fun. The director, Tina Gord-Chisholm, was so fun to work with. She allowed us to improv and gave us the freedom to just have fun with it. So we did that, and we did that for several minutes, just going off our script. We would do our lines, but then we would go off it, and it was hilarious. And as you know, the movie itself is hilarious. So it's a must-see for sure.
Yeah. Do you know if the improv scenes were the ones that made it, or were those one of the on-script takes?
I would say the majority. It was mostly the on-script stuff.
Okay.
That made it in there. But as far as some interesting things that happened on set, I would say that was probably the most fun.
And one thing I was curious about too is the audition process. This is one thing that I haven't had a chance to talk to any of our other guests about. What is the audition process like for you when you go into audition for roles? It could be specifically for this one, or it could be just in general. How does that typically work for you?
Okay, so my agent would get the breakdown, and then I would get an invite to either submit a self-tape. Some projects require in-person auditions. For this particular one, for Little, it was an audition, a self-tape audition. And sometimes the casting directors and producers or directors would book right off the self-tape or after the callback in person. And in this particular one, I do, if I can remember right, I think I booked right on the self-tape for that one.
Nice.
Sometimes for this particular casting director, I would go in for a callback.
And you keep mentioning callback. What is a callback for anyone that might not know?
Okay, so casting directors would get thousands of submissions for a particular role, and then they watch those, and they whittle it down to, I don't know, maybe 25 or maybe down to 10, and then sometimes down to 5 people, and those 5 or 10 would come in for an in-person callback. They would do the scene again, and sometimes get a redirect from the casting director, or if at this point directors or producers would be in the room while you're doing the audition, and then they make notes, and then after the callback, you won't know if you didn't get it. You'll just not hear anything, and if you do get it, you get a message from your agent saying you booked it, which is always a good thing. It's a very exciting thing.
Yeah, anytime you get that, you've been booked for something. Cha-ching!
Oh, it's the best feeling.
And then one thing too that you had just mentioned too about how hilarious the movie is. I'm assuming you've seen it already.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and I plan on seeing it again.
Oh yeah, and for anyone that has not seen it, it's not one of those movies that you watch the trailer and that's all of the funny parts. There's like 100 other funny parts in there. There's at least like a couple dozen even funnier parts in the movie. This is, it's almost nonstop laughs through the whole thing.
Definitely, laugh out loud.
And all of the actors did such an amazing job getting into their characters. honestly, besides the three lead females, all of the males in this movie, to me, did an outstanding job just getting into their characters with her boyfriend and the guys that work for her and everybody else. The guy that just wants to have a donut. I thought he did a great job. And
I have to see it again so I can catch all the funny stuff again, because I know I've missed some.
Yeah, and I was in a crowd too, and I know that there were jokes that I must have missed at some point because everybody was laughing over them.
Right.
And what are some of the other projects that you've worked on that people may have seen you in or that you've worked behind the camera on?
Okay, I would say the most recent one would be Law and Order SVU, and I got to play the mother of the bride. My role name was Samantha Stallworth, and the one thing I loved about this particular scene is I got to be directed by Lucy Liu.
Oh, wow.
That was exciting. Yes. Watching her was just amazing. She was so wonderful and so kind and so inspiring. So much so that after we wrapped our scene, the entire background and cast stood up and gave her a standing ovation. She was that good.
Aww. Yeah, I've been a fan of her since Ally McBeal, which I feel like a lot of people barely remember, but it was such a good show.
Wow. Yeah, she was wonderful. Beautiful person.
And what other projects have you worked on?
I also was in The Resident. I played a neurosurgeon. That was cool. I got to perform brain surgery. My dad was a surgeon, so he was probably looking down from heaven and smiling. Me pretending to do surgery. My parents wanted me to be a doctor growing up, and now I just get to pretend.
And cool. Did you have like a dummy that you had to perform on, or was there an actual background person lying on the table, or what did they use as the corpse or the body?
Oh, that was really interesting because we actually had the live principal actor lying on the surgical table.
Oh, wow.
And then the props people put a dummy rubber prosthetic on her head, and I was performing. I was clipping an aneurysm from that, looking through a little microscope.
And
with Dr. Oakley.
Did they have you do any research on it ahead of time, or was it nothing that you needed to know exactly how brain surgery actually works, or was there an expert on set saying, okay, when you look through here, just make sure your hands are here? And
well, you know what I did when I prepared for this particular audition, I did research on it. And then when I booked it, I refreshed my memory and actually researched what it was like. I mean, I'm just a geek like that, you know. And having grown up with my dad being a surgeon, I was very interested in all the stuff that he used to do. So when I got on set, there was no expert on neurosurgery, but there were...
But you, other than you.
Other than me, of course, yeah. There were the props people there who were telling me how to handle the materials, but then there was also the first AD that was there blocking me, making sure that my eyeline was correct, looking down the microscope.
Yeah.
And still being on camera and seeing my expression. So that was, as far as technicality-wise, that's the only expert that was there, but there was no doctor there.
And I'm assuming all the research that you did ahead of time was basically just reading and not any performing of brain surgery?
Right. No, so YouTube is awesome. It's just a great reference, and Google, of course. So I read about aneurysms and, you know, all the causes of it, and what would happen if you clipped an aneurysm, and then I watched actual surgery.
Oh, wow.
If you have a weak stomach, I would not suggest that you watch them.
Yeah, I've tried watching one once. I got 2 seconds in and was like, nope.
Yeah. So, but I endured it. All for the craft.
Is there any other projects you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah. I also was cast in an independent film called Groomed, and it was based on a true story about human sex trafficking. When I first got into the industry, that was the very first film I ever worked on was called The Candy Shop, which was in 2010. And at the time, Shirley Franklin was wanting to raise awareness about it. And so Whitestone did this film called The Candy Shop to raise awareness about human sex trafficking, domestic human sex trafficking here in Atlanta. And this particular film that I was casting called Groomed was also doing the same thing. They were raising awareness about that same issue. And so I was fortunately cast as the mom based on a true story.
Oh, wow.
And this little film, yeah, it's wonderful. This little film has caught so much attention and has won numerous awards through the festival circuit. And recently we won the Best Editing Award at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, which was an honor. And I was the only one there present to represent our team.
Aww.
And so I was able to accept the award in the very same room where the very first Academy Awards was held.
Oh, wow.
That was surreal.
That
Yeah.
had to have been amazing.
It was very amazing. And the room, which is filled with just very talented artists and filmmakers all over the world. The panel was filled with some big Hollywood executives and producers. So it was definitely an experience.
And
I'll never forget.
I'm going to ask you a red carpet question real quick. Who were you wearing on when you went to the awards show?
I could lie and say Mark Jacobs because he's my favorite, but I wasn't really wearing anything worth mentioning. It was definitely
It was the
black.
Gap in Target.
Accessories, so it was sophisticated.
Very good.
Thank goodness.
And we're going to go ahead and get things wrapped up here real quick. Do you have some social medias or anything where people can look you up and follow you or fan you or do whatever we do on hear your tweets and thoughts and anything like that?
Okay. Yeah, so as far as Instagram and Twitter, my handle is Amor Owens Actor. That's AMOROWENS Actor. And my Facebook page is Amor Owens. I do have a website. It's www.amorowensactress.com if you want to contact me there. That's pretty much it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure sitting down and chatting with you. I've had so much fun catching up again because it's been several years, I think, since I've seen you. In person.
In person, yes. I am so glad we reconnected.
Me
Thanks
too.
for having me on the show, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
Fun.
I'm glad that you made it, and I'm happy you're being so successful and moving your way up. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And you can tune in next week for another full episode of the Above Average Joe Show. Thank you again to our special guest on this mini episode, Amor Owens. And be sure to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitters. And you can also find us on Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can also check out another podcast I co-host, The Extraordinary, and other great media content by Moon Possum Productions at moonpossum.com.
I love that you're doing